Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind. Make sure if you haven't already, you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on your podcast provider. Our aim as ever is to add value to your leadership journey by speaking to amazing people with amazing stories and experts in their field. So today we are speaking to Fran. How are you doing, Fran?
I'm good, thank you, Stuart. How are you doing?
I'm really good and I'm really excited for this episode. I know you fit into the category of amazing stories from what you did last summer, and I'm going to leave that there. It sounds like a movie trailer, doesn't it? So I met Fran a few years ago now, actually, and stayed connected through the good old social media. And you jumped off the radar a little bit last summer, and obviously recently become apparent what you were up to. So without being too cryptic for too long, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself while I hit the 20-minute timer. So for the people who don't know who you are, tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do, but also what you did last summer.
Yeah, I know what you did last I know what you did last summer. So I'm Fran Hogan. I'm an IT project manager. I've been working amidst sort of a corporate regime for around sort of 10, 15 years now. I keep saying that I'm mid-30s now, so I'd say nearing on 15. And yeah, last summer I had a bit of a digital detox. I took myself off grid for 5 months and took part in an observational documentary called The Simpler Life. So it's a Channel 4 commissioned piece that was aired in March but is still available on catch up. And essentially a group of 24 Brits took themselves out of their normal ways of life, went to live off grid as an experiment, just to sort of understand, are we happier without technology? So for me personally, being quite an outspoken female, strong woman in business, it was a big 180 for me going to sort of live without technology, because working in IT, I rely on it, but also sort of stripping back to maybe a slightly more sort of old-fashioned gender role regime. So
amazing. Yeah, and you know what, it's been we joked as we came on and we just having a chat before we recorded, but after seeing the episodes, I feel like I saw you yesterday, and it's been obviously a few years since we've met in person, but I thought it came across really well, and it was really interesting. And again, like you said, with the modern world we now live in, it was quite eye-catching that actually, what does a simpler life bring? But before we get too distracted, I'm going to go through the questions that we ask everybody. Okay. So obviously we're hashtag leadership, what's on your mind? What comes to your mind when you hear the word leadership?
So in the spirit of honesty, I struggled for years with the word leadership. It just brought about negative emotions for me, whether that was because I didn't really recognize the differences between leadership and management, and sort of working in a corporate world, leadership to me was sort of a scary head office word, and it was things like, that's what they think we should be doing, or they're the changes they've said we should make. And so it took a little while for me to sort of really recognize the positiveness or the positivity behind the word leadership. So yeah, as soon as I kind of clocked that leadership doesn't mean management necessarily, and sort of the idea of leaders is to develop a strategy or a goal or a vision, and then we need managers to come in and implement it, I could kind of, I looked at it more positively. And when you don't feel negative about something, you can make an impact, can't you? So I was thinking, what do I think of leadership? And now it's very, very different to what I thought about it sort of 7-8 years ago.
Brilliant. I love that, because again, not a lot of people on the episodes previously have picked up on leadership necessarily being a negative thing, but I totally get it. What a great example of that, depending on your situation, your background and your history related to the word leadership. Awesome. So keeping specifically with yourself, we always ask people to reflect. When did your leadership journey start? So whether it is on reflection, it was a long time ago, and you think of it on now that you're sat here, or there was a light bulb moment at the time and you realized it and you got on the leadership horse, if you like, and then that was you as a leader. How far back are we going for you?
So I had a slightly unconventional route into sort of management, in that I left school at 16. So I don't have any formal qualifications in anything I'm doing now. And so my successes have been sort of driven by doing the job, and sort of really getting under the, into the weeds and understanding business processes, and also just being maybe slightly outspoken and relatively positive, and sort of building a name for myself in that, I've got a can-do attitude and I get things done. So I think I've accidentally fallen into leadership. Probably like most of us, we don't, when we pick our options at school, say, I want to work in payroll or I want to work in IT. It just sort of naturally happens, doesn't it, at times? So, I think flipping sort of leadership being a negative into a positive, that light bulb moment for me was probably around sort of 6-7 years ago. And that was just because I spent some time working from a head office. And then you realise that people aren't sat in ivory towers, and they're real people, we're not robots. I think in particular over the last few years, when we've been working on, Teams calls or Zoom calls, you don't always understand that people are people behind sort of the screen. So behind all those PowerPoint slides and behind all those, pre-recorded meetings or messages, actually spending time with people, having a cup of tea, having a chat by the water cooler, you realise, people have made mistakes. They've got commitments in the evening. They might be late for a reason. There's a reason behind one of the directives that they're bringing about. So once I started to realise that there isn't an ivory tower, leaders are there for a reason. That doesn't mean that they want to manage you. They want people to have the autonomy to manage themselves. My light bulb moment at that point, next to a water cooler, I think in an office in Leicester many moons ago, I started to recognise that that there's a reason for having a leader.
Yeah, amazing. I love that as well, because one, you've referenced the water cooler, because sometimes we say with the modern way of working now is that we don't have the touch points around the water cooler. But you also brought in the human element as well, because what we're up to, 92 episodes now, and quite a lot of people say the amount of people we've had on and the amazing people, and some people have got those tags of ivory tower, and they're like, how did you get that person on? And it's like, well, they're just people, and I asked nicely if they'd like to come and share their story, and guess what, they are just people like us, and you can have just nice conversations. And I love the before and after recording, and I love the fact you brought that out, because how relevant is that when you relax people into it's just people interacting and talking and communicating that gets really good things done.
Well, we had that at the start of this call, didn't we? Just before we started to record, it was like, could I just have a moment, please, to go to the bathroom? When you're sat, you just have to have the confidence to say, don't you? Like, can I just have a moment? You know, nothing terrible is going to happen if you need a couple of minutes. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So influence. We started asking people this question recently. So would you pull out any influence? So the leader you are, the person you are now, where would you go, whether it's a thing or a person, whether it's positive or negative? Would you pick out something that has had an influence on your leadership journey to where you are right now?
Yes. And I think, I think it's easy to pick out the people that have had a negative impact on you, more so the positive. I think I knew what I didn't want to be. And I think that helped me develop, who I genuinely think makes quite a success of what they do every day at work. So internal politics, mind games, not telling people why you're asking a question, those things sort of I was privy to a few years ago, and it just sent me into a spin. And so now I'm really conscious that when I'm asking someone something, that they know why. So it's not because I'm worried about what we're putting on a timesheet. It's not because I'm micromanaging. Hi, it's Fran. Quickly get to the point in a Teams chat. We all go through, we've all got lots of messages pinging up throughout the day, haven't we? And when you just get a hi and someone's busy, they're in a call, or they're a bit overstretched, it's almost anxiety inducing just seeing all of these highs pinging up without knowing what somebody wants you for. So I try and get to the point as quickly as possible to avoid sort of the internal worries, to make sure people know that there's no politics involved, and so that people know why I'm asking the question, when I need to know the answer, and if there's a opportunity to have a quick chat instead of sending lots and lots of emails, just to avoid the sort of keyboard warrior strategy. I try and get to the point as quickly as possible. Yeah. So as negative as it sounds in saying I didn't necessarily have a role model, I learned by kind of wanting to do the opposite of what I sort of grew up within. I'm hoping that kind of being really open and honest and saying I didn't really have a role model. You can't say that you've got one if you don't have one. I think now soft skills are more recognised and personalities are more recognised. But when I first started, I was in, I was the only female project manager at the time. I don't have a technical background, so it was easy to kind of feel silly or stupid or not sort of confident to ask questions. When now it's sort of celebrated. If you don't know something, you just ask. There's a reason why we've got different people doing different jobs. So So Amazing. In summary, to sum it up, I just wanted to be the opposite of maybe some.
I love that though.
Some of the people
roll with the punches. I think I sort of comes to my mind when you were saying about that. So tell me a little bit about why you decided to go on to the simpler life, because what we were chatting before, weren't we? I love all this, and we could fill a whole hour with this. But tell us a little bit about your decision-making process in the first place.
Yeah, so I was on the corporate treadmill. There would always be opportunities for progression. There would always be opportunities for sort of sticking your head above the parapet. But I was just very mindful that I wasn't necessarily thinking about what I was doing, or thinking about whether it was good for me. So I would do something because it got me noticed, or I would do something because it would lead to sort of a pay rise, for example, or a relocation change. And it was always, how do I get my name higher up the family tree at work? And I wasn't always particularly happy. So every Sunday I'd get that horrendous feeling, thinking, oh, here we go again on Monday. And it wouldn't be that anybody would know on a Monday that I was dreading Monday, because turn up, good morning everyone, positive on calls, almost a bit of a sort of a fake it till you make it attitude. But internally, I just wanted to avoid, or I wanted to see if there was anything I could do to avoid kind of losing Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, worrying about Monday. And so a friend sent me a link to something which obviously I ignored because I was too busy.
I love that.
But yeah, there was a particular Sunday where I thought, let's just try something different. So yeah, I applied, and wasn't necessarily expecting to get in, but yeah, had a few chats, explained what I did, and why I would like to give it a go, and then the weeks flew past quickly, and I was there.
Yeah, brilliant. So, and again, there's so much we could talk about, but can you just tell us a little bit about when you were there for the 4.5 months? And we were talking before, weren't we, trying to link it as much as possible to business. And were there any sort of light bulb moments, realizations, transferable skills that you used while you were there that you brought from, I'm going to say, your past, so the corporate world? Because again, it was very different, wasn't it? Very different. Was there anything that you drew on while you were there to help you from the business world?
Yeah, so I drew on things whilst I was there from the business world that really, really helped us out. And similarly, when I left and I've gone back to the corporate world, there's things I learned there that are now helping me out. So it's in a bit of a full circle. I was very, very conscious whilst I was there that everybody knew what we were doing and why, because none of us had run a farm before. None of us had lived without technology before. Even the kids had iPads. So even though over the years, I've gone from one of those Nokias that you can barely send a text message to, a phone that, I book holidays on. We've all been privy to using technology and being able to get things really quickly at, the click of a finger. So recognizing that it was a big shift in how we get things, like how do we eat, how do we keep clean, how do we make some money. Doing all of that without technology was part of the challenge, but also making sure everybody kind of got on well, because there wasn't necessarily a hierarchy or a hierarchy that was set in stone. So we couldn't be in a situation where someone said do that and everybody does it. You know, why should they? They're not paid to do it. So for me, having really clear, open forms of communication, honest communication, was something that I was really keen to implement.
Yeah.
And yes, at times that was a bit of a challenge, because I'm coming from the Western world, where irrespective of who you are, where you come from, male, female, you know, etc., it doesn't matter. You can, if you've got a question, you ask it, and if you've got an idea, you can talk about it. And so obviously there are a few little times where I struggled, or would have to be mindful of the fact that the Amish sort of leaders as such live in a society where the man's the head of the household, the head of the business, the head of the farm, whatever. And it was interesting for me that we could kind of live and work alongside each other when we are, complete polar opposites. So communication was my key thing, and being female and speaking, I think at points would have been a challenge for some people. But yeah, I kept it going, and that strategy worked. I stayed until the end.
I know. Do you know what I was going to say? Like, without giving too much away, because I really commend everybody to go and watch of it. It's really, really good series. But you made it to the end. So with that, so what sort of things? Because we're trying to cram this into 20 minutes. I'm conscious of that. Going with what you exactly said then, there are some things that you've taken away from the experience and put into your life now in your business world. What sort of things have you had those realizations and brought forward from that experience into the here and now?
Yeah, so I think that the changes in how I understand hierarchies have really benefited me. So before going to the farm, I was always looking for the next step up. So, okay, so we're in management now. How do I become a director? How do I become a CEO? It was always, what's the next step up in terms of the name of the job title, not necessarily what I was doing. And on a farm, you don't have a CEO, you don't have directors. We were a group of people that just had to get things done. So whether that be really mundane tasks like hand washing clothes or baking another batch of bread, they were really meaningful things that contributed to the success of the farm. And I stopped chasing for, the next promotion as such, and could really kind of relax into it. And because I felt confident in what I was doing, even though to me it was a mundane task, and because it benefited people, now I'm much more confident in what I'm doing at work because I'm calmer. I can say, I don't feel comfortable with that, or I'd rather coach as opposed to lead. I'd rather spend some time just sort of bedding in the role I'm doing now, or I'd like some more time over, to back for myself. So I'm not chasing for a promotion. I'm just making a success of. I'm trying just to make a success of what I'm doing each day.
Fab.
That's not to say promotions aren't nice, but it's not my goal. It's what do we have to do in bite-sized chunks today? Not does this mean next month I'm going to get a promotion? Yeah.
Does that fit into the category of, I've heard people talk about this, and I can resonate with this about being present, being more present in the here and now, because again, you are sort of, society pushes you a little bit, doesn't it? And motivation and aspiration puts us along, doesn't it? And having a family, and especially myself, it's kind of, am I present right now? And usually the answer is no.
Well, also before going away and having no technology, on a call, I'd have a Teams call on the go. I'd be replying to emails. I'd probably be having chats on my phone all at the same time. And there's no way you can be present with all three things at the same time. And subconsciously, that must be doing something to us. So now, I'm chatting to you. I've turned my notifications off. It's just like, let's do one thing at a time.
Brilliant. I love that, and that's a really good takeaway for people listening as well. There's one thing I'm going to ask you about, and I was thinking about this. So, what was your lag like? And I mean lag as in, how long did it take you to turn off from the corporate world, going into this environment? Because I've struggled with this as well. When I go on holiday, it takes me a certain amount of time to switch off, and then how long did it take you to switch back on again? after having that, I'm going to call it tranquil. I know it wasn't tranquil because I've seen the series, but what was the lag before and after like for you?
So it was different. So before, instantly, because I didn't have anything. So when you're on holiday, you know that you've probably got your work emails on your phone ready to check should you like to.
Yeah.
Because it was literally like a digital rehab. You know, no mobile phone, no laptop, nothing, not even any electricity. So it was an instant switch. And I think because it was such a huge change, as in you're in a house with other people, you don't have any power, you need to feed people, there's loads of strangers you don't know at all that you're working with. The switch off was instant. Brilliant. And that was probably replaced with other challenges. But I was not thinking about work the second I was there. It was a really quick switch off.
Yeah.
Switching back on took a bit of time.
It's like, oh, really?
You know,
to drag you off the farm.
Well, I was very excited to get back to what I would call normal work because I missed it. I missed the corporate environment. I missed talking about how we're going to make like cost savings as opposed to, how have we overapproved the bread or if we sold the onions or all of that sort of stuff. So as much as I loved my time there, some of the content of what I was talking about didn't really float my boat. So it was nice to go back to something that I felt I could go back into refreshed. But things like I couldn't get used to the fast-paced situation. So I almost found it frustrating that my phone was going off whilst I was on a call. I couldn't multitask in terms of technology. So there was just too much going on. There were too many distractions and I had to have like considerable amounts of time without my phone. Yeah. So at the end of the week, I think I had like a whole day without checking my personal phone. And that would have been unheard of.
But then suppose that goes back to what you said before, though. That just shows that it's not potentially very good for us to be operating at that level of intensity.
Yeah, you're not present in anything you're doing, literally nothing. Well, I personally wasn't present in anything I'm doing. So now, I've been back a few months now, so maybe some habits are sort of creeping back in. I'll do more than one thing at one time. But I recognize now if I'm feeling a bit tired or I'm struggling to get my words out, I just need to just go back to one form of technology.
Yes.
At a point in time.
Amazing. So Fran, that is 20 minutes. I'm really pleased, though. I'm really pleased. So I was worried that we weren't going to get a lot of stuff in there because there was such an amazing experience you went through. And I encourage everybody to go and listen and watch it. And let us know your takeaways, the audience, from this episode. But then also send me the takeaways. I can forward them to Fran or Fran's links will be on this episode. Reach out and give your takeaways and your sort of congratulations, if you like. I always feel like saying congratulations on your achievement because it was an amazing feat and completely different. I'm so pleased you got so many takeaways from it as well. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us. So ladies and gents, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and hit follow on the podcast provider. Every Wednesday at 6 a.m. we have some amazing people coming and sharing their stories and expertise on leadership. And Fran, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Stuart.
And then we'll see you all next week.
Have a lovely evening.
Bye.